like clock. I can't stop. Fuck around, make my 40 pop.
Alright guys, Boruto chapter 63 review. This episode, or this chapter I should say, was definitely interesting. The biggest news of the week has to be Boruto's brand new power-up. Now I did kind of talk about this a little bit in the previous video, but now we got the full context. Now we have a lot more information than we did have with just the text and just the spoilers and translations. But I do kind of want to talk about the first thing that we did obviously see, coming off of last month. The big thing was the fact that Boruto pulled up on Kawaki and Code. We didn't necessarily know exactly what he'd be able to do, mainly because we do understand that Code is just that strong of a character, but he pulls up, Boruto fights against Code, and he got a serious case of the beats. As I said, exactly what we thought it could have possibly been. One thing that I definitely do want to point out though, Boruto, when he did have the Karma Seal, and Code when he was in base, that right there seemed like an interesting fight. Obviously, it seemed that Code had the upper hand. Maybe it's because Code was talking so confident, mainly because he understood that he had the Karma Seal and he didn't necessarily activate it just as of yet. But Boruto was giving Code the work just a tiny bit, but right after Code did activate his Karma Seal, it was completely over at that particular point. Code would completely outclass Boruto, but in the midst of Code giving Boruto the absolute beats, he was kind of coaching Boruto about the Karma Seal, basically telling him about the true essence of the Karma Seal. Code himself pretty much laid out the basics. He basically said that the Karma Seal upgrades your speed and strength to regular physical abilities, but also it does something more important, something that Boruto still has yet to learn as of right now. Specifically, Code said the Karma Seal gives you the Otsutsuki members' combat experience accumulated over millennia. He then goes on to say, in short, you instantly become a seasoned warrior. Now this right here is absolutely interesting, and this right here just goes into the hypothesis of what this new Boruto form can actually do. But let's finish this off real quick. After that, he pretty much attempts to kick Boruto. Boruto completely dodges it, and then we see the absolute insane form of this new Borushiki that Boruto had actually came up with. Now I don't necessarily know exactly what to call this yet. I think it's pretty safe to say that this right here is actually stage 2 of the Karma Seal, but what should we call Boruto as of right now? Maybe controlled Borushiki, or just flat out still Borushiki. I have absolutely no idea, but this Boruto looks absolutely insane. Every time that we do see this type of Karma Seal, we just marvel over the drip that Boruto actually does have. But before the chapter did come out, one of the biggest question marks was going to be if Boruto has full control over this stage 2 of the Karma Seal. It seems that he does, mainly because before he did actually enter this form, Boruto was alert. One of the things that we did actually understand when Momoshiki started to take control over Boruto's body, that usually happened when Boruto lost consciousness. Again, this specific situation right here, Boruto was 100% alert. He did not lose consciousness. I did kind of touch on this in my last video. When Boruto's left eye is closed, it seems that he doesn't necessarily have control over his own body. In this specific time, his left eye, both eyes are open, and now it seems like Boruto is there having full control over this body. Now another interesting thing that I definitely do want to point out, Boruto's eye is not a regular eye. It may be a Byakugan, and I say may, mainly because we have absolutely no idea. It's still going to be another waiting game, similar to how it was a waiting game when Borushiki came out and Momoshiki was taking over Boruto's body. One of the things that a lot of people have hypothesized was that Boruto, when he is taken over by Momoshiki, that form of Borushiki has Momoshiki's dojutsu, but when Boruto enters this form by himself, remind you guys, this right here was hypothesized before we even knew that Boruto was going to do this in this chapter. A lot of people were saying that once he does tap into this form, Boruto's original dojutsu, the Jogen, will pop out. And of course, a lot of people have been pointing out the fact that they didn't necessarily draw in the pupil in the middle of the Byakugan that's usually there. So it's a very good possibility that this right here is actually the Jogen, but still we won't know until the anime actually does come out. This form of Boruto is going to be even more intriguing, mainly because, as I said earlier, what Code said was that Boruto gains the battle experience of Momoshiki. Now I definitely do want to point this out. This doesn't necessarily mean that Boruto is going to be just as strong as Momoshiki, just how Jigen himself wasn't just as strong as Ishiki Otsutsuki, and just how Code himself right now with his imperfect Karma Seal is not as strong as Ishiki Otsutsuki was. The biggest thing that I think that we should be looking towards is, of course, the chakra control, the chakra management. Is Boruto going to be able to fly, and is he going to be able to use the Karma Seal to its 100% potential? And I do want to point this out. This explains a lot just a whole bunch of things that we were kind of confused with, specifically with Boruto learning a lot of abilities. If you guys do recall, I have been kind of calling out the Boruto writers for this, for Boruto learning a bunch of abilities just out of thin air. Boruto at one point didn't even know how to activate the Karma Seal. Out of nowhere, he learned how to activate the Karma Seal. Out of nowhere, he learned how to absorb chakra. Out of nowhere, he learned how to open portals to different dimensions. And even just recently, as a couple chapters ago, Boruto miraculously became the best sensory ninja in the Hidden Leaf Village. So even when Boruto was chilling, the Karma Seal was slowly giving Boruto more and more knowledge that Momoshiki himself had. Now, since Boruto completely tapped into stage 2 of the Karma Seal, this right here is essentially Borushiki. Is Boruto now going to get all of that battle experience that Momoshiki did have at once? And of course, once Boruto does relinquish control of the stage of the Karma Seal, once he does deactivate the Karma Seal, will that experience stay in his mind? I think that right there is going to be a very interesting thing as well, man, because just off of the experience that Momoshiki has, Boruto's base might become like Kage level. Like, it is going to be that serious. But one of the things that was made very evident in this episode is the fact that Code himself does not fear that version of Boruto at all. As I said earlier, he was essentially coaching Boruto through this transformation, telling him exactly what the Karma Seal is, and even after he's seen it, he seemed a little bit excited about, of course, seeing the true potential of Boruto using the Karma Seal. Now, not only that, we do have to anticipate that Code also has this second stage of the Karma Seal. How strong will Code be in this second stage of the Karma Seal? I think it's very safe to say that he wouldn't necessarily be as strong as a character like Jigen, mainly because if that was the case, he'd have been nerfed a little bit more, just because of the sheer fact that Code originally was nerfed to not be stronger than Jigen. So he can't necessarily be stronger than Jigen in his second stage of the Karma Seal, but specifically, how close is he to a character like Jigen? That right there is going to be very interesting. Now, there's a couple other things that did happen in this chapter right here. Kawaki basically explained his plan to Boruto to go meet the person who actually does have some sort of power over Code. I personally did say that this right here was a very good idea. I personally believe it was a good idea for very different reasons, and it might not even hit in regards to actual entertainment wise. Obviously, people are going to be looking for the possibility of Kawaki meeting Ida, which is the person who actually does have influence over Code, and asking Ida to tell Code to drop his Otsutsuki will. This is very possible. I know a lot of people don't necessarily keep up with every single chapter, but one of Ida's main abilities is she's able to make people her quote-unquote slaves. As of right now, Code is infatuated with Ida, and because of that, he'd pretty much do almost anything that she does say. If this really does come through to fruition, are we really about to say that this arc right here was stopped because Code has a crush on Ida? That right there would just seem absolutely terrible writing. But again, it can definitely happen. It could definitely serve for some sort of, I should say, peace as of right now. But I don't necessarily think it's going to get that far personally. One of the things that we can anticipate is that other people will be joining Kawaki, Boruto, and Code at that particular moment. And even Ida and Code were actually talking about how they need to wrap this up, mainly because at any given moment, help can possibly arise. If you tell me that Naruto and Sasuke are going to join this battle with an already existing Borushiki, which is in full control, full chakra, alongside Kawaki, I'm probably going to tell you that they have a very good chance of beating Code right then and there. I'm not going to lie. He might just get jumped on the spot. He going to be stomped out by a bunch of ninja chocolate collectors, ACGs, Timberlands, the new Jordan 4, some Crocs. You might as well let him and get some hits in too. Now, the next chapter is going to be very telling, man, because Boruto, it seems like he's not going to be good enough to actually defeat Code by himself. And if you ask me right now, I honestly do not know if Kawaki is going to end up helping Boruto in this actual fight. Now, the question is going to be, how long can Borushiki actually draw this fight out? Are they going to be able to draw this fight out long enough for Sasuke and Naruto to actually get to the battlefield? But this chapter right here was definitely something very good. By the way, there are some other things that I didn't necessarily touch on. For example, this guy being completely unemployed after this chapter, but that's besides the point. Let me know what you guys think about this chapter and give me your opinions about Borushiki, or Boruto's controlled Borushiki form. This right here seems like it's going to be an absolute game changer. And of course, one of the biggest questions that I do want to ask you guys, because me personally, I gave up on this a very long time ago, as I chronicalized in multiple other videos. Do you guys think that this right here is actually a Jogan, or do you guys think it's a Byakugan? As I said before, it's drawn a little bit weird, but we also did see how the Jogan was also drawn, mainly because we did see it in the Otsutsuki God art, and it looked different from this as well. Let me know what you guys think. It's me, your boy Barbie, and we out.
It's a knife.